All right, so in this video, I want to share with you one key that's extremely important to getting to the point where you're literally cocaine addict addicted to studying, because that happened to me. My favorite subject in university when I did my engineering degree was probably maths. And of course, I used to hate maths. In the first year of IGCSE, I was in the lowest level in maths. My teachers had zero hope in me, but I made an academic comeback within a couple months. And the academic comeback wasn't just that I was getting good grades. It was that I was literally addicted to studying on the bus, studying, in bed before most people read a novel before bed. I was reading a book on calculus. And it wasn't just maths that I loved in university. I loved all sorts of subjects. Some of my highest performing subjects and favorites were things like finance, linguistics, astronomy, law. I even did like Russian, so it was all kind of subjects that I learned to love. And because the truth is, deep within us, we all love learning. We're all naturally curious. As kids, we come out of the womb. Okay, maybe not the womb, but we grow up curious. I remember when I was a kid, I would ask my dad like a million questions. Like, hey, why is that leaf green? Why is the Eiffel Tower a thing? I would ask all sorts of questions. But the problem is the education system, it takes us, right? It takes us, this is you. It crushes the love for learning out of us till it's pulverized into dust, flies away into the wind, and we hate learning. We just look for the day when we're done studying so we never have to learn again. And unfortunately, one of the sad realities is people stop learning once they leave the education system. But the principle that I want to share with you that will help you love learning and make you learn much faster is repetition. I'm not just talking about spaced repetition. I'm not talking about like, I'll review your notes, bro. This goes much deeper than you might think. So let me explain. So I like to think of like a subject, any subject, literally the hardest subject you can do, maths, engineering, anything. I like to think of it like listening to a song for the first time. When you hear a song on the radio for the first time, it doesn't even register in your awareness. It just sounds like a regular standard song. It's nothing special, right? But then when the song plays again a couple times, after maybe 5 listens of you hearing it again and again and again, even if you're not consciously like putting all your effort into it and paying attention, you will get to the point where you've probably memorized the chorus and you can sing it on command. Then when you've heard the song like 20 times, 30 times, now you can literally sing the song perfectly from beginning to end. Maybe you hate the song. Maybe you didn't even put in effort to learn it, but your brain still naturally absorbed it and you can say it out loud. That's the key to repetition, and that's the mistake students are making when they try to learn to love learning and when they try to go through the learning process. They expect to be able to learn the material in like a couple repetitions. The truth is, this is how I see it. When I first approach a subject, let's say, for example, I'm going to the first lecture or I'm reading the textbook for the first time. Let's say it's maths, calculus or something. The first time I go over that lecture or the first time I read the chapter, honestly, I understand very little. Let's say like 50%. Most of it goes over my head. So the way I see that first repetition in like, for example, let's say you go to the lecture and you're trying to pay attention and learn the material, or you're reading the textbook, the way I see that first repetition is I'm planting dopamine seeds to later sprout when I come back to the material, if that makes sense. So that first repetition is going to be kind of difficult because it's going to be like a foreign language, especially like a maths textbook. I'll read through it and a lot of things will go over my head. I won't understand it, but I'm just planting seeds that later when I come back to repeat the material, they're going to plant and things are going to make sense. So the reason students hate studying is because they have a lot of frustration around it. If they're not understanding shit on the first iteration, they're getting frustrated. They're going to lectures. Their mind is wandering to other places. For me, the first iteration, I don't even write notes. By the way, I never write notes for any of my subjects. I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm saying learning is beyond notes. Like, yeah, I literally do not even take notes for my subjects. But the point is that for me, that first iteration, when I'm in a lecture or when I'm reading the textbook, the first iteration is just to learn. It's just to try to understand what it is I'm looking at in front of me. I'm not trying to write notes. I'm not trying to get anything pushed into my mind. I'm trying to stay as relaxed as possible, as open-minded and as curious as possible. When you're relaxed, when you're open-minded, when you're curious, dopamine is maximum in your brain, focus is maximum, curiosity is maximum, memory is maximum, enjoyment is maximum, learning is maximum, grades is maximum. So the key is to stay relaxed and understand the learning process. The learning process is not like you're going to understand it on the first iteration. It's about coming back and back and back and back. I'll go into a detail a little bit in how exactly to come back and back and back. It's not just about doing that. It's like when you first see a word in a foreign language or a language, it's like, what is this? This is disgusting. What am I looking at? But then you see the word again and again and again in different contexts, in different situations, and you get to the point where that word is so ingrained into your memory, you couldn't even imagine forgetting it. Like you couldn't even imagine a time when you didn't know it. Think back to what you used to learn in your previous years. There's probably some material, maybe beginning maths or beginning sciences. That shit is so deep into your brain, so deep into your understanding of the world, that is probably never going to leave. That will happen to you in the current subject you're doing as long as you stick it out and keep repeating. Now, of course, it's not just simply about repeating over and over again. I had a friend in university, this is the strategy she would use. She would watch all the lectures, then she would watch them again and again and again. That's okay, but the problem is every iteration of the subject is taking you, 3 times 12, 36 hours per repetition. That's insane. Then to do 10 repetitions of the subject is going to take you 360 hours. There's got to be a better way to do this. So I don't have an exact process for doing this, but let me explain how I understand it conceptually. So I kind of see the subject as like a web of a bunch of different concepts. So chapter 1 of calculus will be about this topic. Chapter 2 is this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic. But the thing is, all the topics are interconnected. So topic 1 is connected to topic 3. You're going to use the quotient rule, sometimes mixed with the chain rule, sometimes mixed with trig identities. Everything in the subject is like a web of interconnected concepts. And every time I do a repetition of a chapter or something, or even a repetition of a section, I'm kind of understanding the web a bit better. I'm making connections between all the different areas. So first of all, I have the attitude of relaxing and being curious and open-minded, not being frustrated that I'm not understanding things, but being patient and knowing that my brain will do all the work. That's the key thing to understand. Your brain is a powerful machine designed to learn. Like that example with the song. Maybe you hate the song. Maybe you wish it didn't get put into your brain, but your brain will just do it naturally because it's getting repeated so many times. But here's the other thing you need to know. It's not just about repetition. It's also about variability of repetition. So let's say you have the exact same serve in backhand every time in tennis and you master that one backhand serve. That's not sufficient. You need to be able to master that backhand serve from every single possible angle, every single possible permutation of situations. So when I'm learning, let's say, for example, calculus, I don't just read the textbook over and over again. I try to attack it from different perspectives, different sources. I use different repetitions. So maybe first repetition, I'll read the textbook. Second repetition, I'll go over the lecture slides. Third repetition, I'll watch some YouTube videos on the concepts I don't understand. Then I'll use ChatGPT. Then I'll talk to a friend about this next section. Then I'll do this. Then I'll do this. I'll combine everything. And all that's doing is building that web of interconnected concepts that I'm learning from that subject, if that makes sense. So that's the other thing. People see it as a process. It's like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. You take notes on this chapter, then this chapter, then this chapter, then this chapter. But in reality, it's a web. Nothing's linear. Sometimes I'll go chapter 1, then I'll go to the end of chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 3, then chapter 4, then a YouTube video about this, and then a friend, and then ChatGPT, and then whatever. And then past papers and doing questions. So it's all about variability, attacking it from different angles. And again, repetitions. Understanding that maybe reading the textbook in one sitting, you're not going to understand the chapter. You're going to have to attack it from many different angles. You're going to have to come back to the textbook. You're going to have to do all that stuff. Like I got a 6 out of 7 in IB high-level maths in high school. And the reason I didn't get a 7, I literally had basically memorized the textbook by that point. But the reason I didn't get a 7 was I simply didn't do enough practice questions. Because practice questions are kind of like those connections between all the different concepts. You need to do them to see how all the concepts relate to each other. And again, like I said, it's not like a logical, chronological process. It's a chaotic process where you're doing a bunch of repetitions and you're making connections to the entire web. That's how I see it anyway. I don't know if this makes sense. I don't know if this has any backing or something, but this is how I see it. But 100% repetition, variability of repetition. This is key concepts that are scientifically proven to learn better. And that's the beautiful thing about learning. Every time you understand a new connection in that web of knowledge, you get that spike of dopamine in your brain, which in my opinion is way better than scrolling on TikTok, way better than video games, way better than anything. When you're like going through that process where you're genuinely like developing insights to your understanding of the world, learning mathematics, exploring the world of physics, of maths, of anything. YouTube's a skill as well. Learning how to talk to camera is a skill. Learning anything is amazing because you get those insights, those light bulb moments where you finally understand something for the first time. But that's it. Go do your reps, brother. See you later.